receptionist. "Oh, everything's fine, Mr. Ehrlich," the receptionist chirped, though her voice betrayed a tremor of panic. "Just a little stress with the year-end tax information. Your money is completely safe, but the money wasn't safe. It was gone. It had evaporated in bad margin calls and melted away in ice bars at $500,000 weddings. Inside the EMA offices, the atmosphere was poisonous. The internal accountants who had discovered the 20% loss were demanding transparency. Kirk, looking haggard, his Brioni suit suddenly looking a size too big, stonewalled them. He produced a single sheet of paper claiming the fund had $155 million in assets, but he physically blocked anyone from examining the underlying data. Steve Atwater felt physically sick. The former NFL powerhouse, a man who had faced down 300-pound linemen without flinching, now felt a cold sweat prickle his neck every time he walked into the office. The current NFL players had banded together. They weren't asking politely anymore. They were demanding their money. Millions of dollars. Kirk brought them into the conference room. He leaned heavily against the mahogany table, looking at the angry faces of the men he had sworn to protect. "Guys, listen to me," Kirk pleaded, his smooth baritone cracking. "You'll get your money next month. We've had a technical issue with the clearing banks, a routing problem. It's just a clerical error. I give you my word." The players stared at him. They had trusted him because he was one of them, a man of color who had cracked the code of the white-dominated financial elite. Now, looking at Kirk's darting eyes and sweating brow, they saw him for what he was, a man trapped in a burning building of his own making. By mid-February, the excuses ran out. Checks began to bounce across Atlanta. On February 17th, the NFL players took decisive action. They bypassed Kirk entirely and went straight to a judge. Within hours, the judge issued an emergency order freezing every single asset tied to International Management Associates. The SEC, having received a tip months earlier, finally moved in alongside the FBI. They executed a search warrant on the EMA offices. Forensic accountants walked into the luxurious suite expecting to find the complex machinery of a massive hedge fund. Instead, they found a ghost town. They found nice desks, expensive chairs, and empty file cabinets. There was no algorithm. There was no trading floor. More alarmingly, When they reached the CEO's office, they found an empty desk. Kirkwright's computer was missing, and so was Kirk. Chapter 9, The Phantom in the Sun, Miami Beach, Florida, May 2006. The water in the pool at the Ritz-Carlton South Beach was exactly 82 degrees. Kirkwright lay on a padded chaise lounge, a pair of expensive Tom Ford sunglasses shielding his eyes from the blinding Florida sun. He took a sip of a mojito, the condensation dripping down his wrist. He was a fugitive from the Federal Bureau of Investigation, the target of a nationwide manhunt, and yet he couldn't let go of the luxury. He was a man addicted to the aesthetic of wealth. For 3 months, he had been a ghost. He bounced between high-end hotels, paying in cash, using aliases, burning through the last reserves of the money he had stolen from men like Roger O'Neill and Calvin Paris. He left his wife in Atlanta to face the angry mobs and the auctioneers who would soon strip her of her gold fixtures and marble floors. Beside his lounge chair sat a cheap, disposable cell phone. He picked it up and dialed a number from memory. Wall Street Journal, investigative desk. A voice answered. "This is Kirk Wright," Kirk said calmly, adjusting his sunglasses. It was an act of pure, unadulterated narcissism. While the FBI turned over every rock in Atlanta, Kirk was giving exclusive telephone interviews to the national press. "Mr. Wright, the authorities consider you a fugitive," the reporter said, the shock evident in his voice. "Where are you?" "I'm not a fugitive," Kirk replied smoothly, watching a pair of models walk past the pool. "I don't have anything to hide. I'm just being careful of my movements. The investors, particularly the NFL players, they were angry. I feared for my personal safety. I had to step away to protect myself. It was a brilliant, sociopathic spin. He was casting himself as the victim of violent athletes rather than the architect of their financial ruin. What about the missing $150 million? The reporter pressed. "Legitimate trading losses." Kirk lied without missing a beat. "The market turned against us. It's a tragedy, but it's not a crime." He hung up the phone and tossed it into his beach bag. He felt a twisted sense of pride. He was still controlling the narrative. He was still Kirk Wright, the Harvard genius. But the FBI wasn't reading the Wall Street Journal for clues. They were tracking digital breadcrumbs. They had traced the burner phones. They had monitored the cash withdrawals. The net was closing. 30 minutes later, as Kirk signaled the waiter for another mojito, shadows fell